Hey guys, Andrew Henderson, Nomad Capitalist, nomadcapitalist.com here in Belgrade, Serbia. Wanted to share the latest on possibly a new economic citizenship program that you might want to be aware of if you're an investor and if you're looking for a passport that has a bit more muscle to it, as they might say. Now, 2017 has been a very interesting year for economic citizenship. Started off, as we talked about in another video, with Saint Lucia reducing the net worth requirement to get their citizenship by investment from $5 million to zero. They also introduced a donation option of $100,000 to match Dominica. And they also said they're going to make the process easier than Dominica, which led me to begin the process, and I'm going through that right now. Also earlier in the year, we made a video on Turkey, which became only the third quote-unquote real country, as they might say, to have its own economic citizenship program. You get a passport with a minimum $1 million investment, mainly targeted at Arab investors, in my opinion. And that became the first non-EU, quote-unquote, big country, not an island, for example, to come up with their own passport program. In fact, I think Turkey is the largest country in the world that lets you, quote-unquote, buy a passport. But there may be another country nearby that is looking to get in the bandwagon, and that country is none other than Montenegro, right next door. Now, I've been a resident of Montenegro for a little while now. I own a home there. I've been going there for many years. I've been writing about Montenegro and why I think it is the crown jewel of this Balkan region. Serbia number 2, but really in terms of investment freedom and pro-business and low taxes, Montenegro is really number 1, and I'm not sure why it doesn't get more attention than it does, especially from folks in Europe. Every country has its challenges, but Montenegro is interesting. And about almost a decade ago now, they came out with a very short-lived economic citizenship program. There were some issues surrounding it. They eventually withdrew the program, but basically the deal was it would have cost €500,000 and you would have gotten a Montenegro passport. Now, Montenegro did not have access to all the European countries that it does now back then, so I thought that was a bit overpriced at the time. But Montenegro has been whispering for about the last year and a half, and even longer really, but more seriously whispering since last spring, about coming out with a new economic citizenship program that allows you to get a passport. Now, all the details of what may or may not be of this program are not known yet. Montenegro, like many governments, certainly is not rushing this. There's a lot of discussion. But I remember meeting with folks from the Prime Minister's office last year, and while they didn't really address it directly, there was kind of some discussion that this was underway among the legislature, that they were talking about this. And from people whom I know in Montenegro, having spent a lot of time there, what they're considering doing is saying, you know what, €500,000, you can invest that money. I imagine there will be some controls on how that money is invested, whether you're allowed to invest it entirely into real estate. I don't know, and nobody knows yet. Obviously, whatever you invest in, they're going to do what Turkey and any other country does, which is to require you to hold on to that investment for a certain period of time. Could be 3 years, could be 5 years. But it's going to be very interesting. And what I like about these, again, quote-unquote real countries, not to be dismissive of the islands, but the islands have largely followed a cookie-cutter approach, and they're starting to differentiate themselves, which I like, and which is why I thought Saint Lucia was far and away the best option for a Westerner, and why that attracted me. But I like the larger countries because I see less probability that they will say, hey, here's some cookie-cutter real estate you have to buy. It's not worth what you're paying for it. You'll never be able to resell it for anywhere near what you paid for it, and that'll get you your citizenship. And so it's basically like making a donation, but you're getting real estate that's overpriced. I don't see Montenegro necessarily doing that. There's a possibility that may be an option, but I do see hiring people as an option. I do see lots of different investment opportunities if Montenegro does indeed go through and finalize its economic citizenship legislation. There was a program where there was a group of investors up in the north of the country who were building a hotel, who I believe were getting economic citizenship in Montenegro kind of like on a one-off basis. They basically negotiated, hey, we'll invest a lot of money, tens if not hundreds of millions of dollars in exchange, I presume, the principals were getting citizenship. So those kind of deals are always possible, if not always advisable. But I think that Montenegro, if they have a program, will be very interesting. Lots of different opportunities. We're still waiting to see what it might be. The question is, would a program like Montenegro be of interest to a Westerner, the people who we talk to? And I think that by and large, the answer is probably no. I think that being a resident of Montenegro is great. I'm very happy to have that. I have a property. I think it's a great deal. I have a lot of faith in the country. Again, it's not perfect, but I like it a lot. Including just on a personal level, I feel very peaceful there. But the challenge with a country like Montenegro is that they don't have access to the UK and Ireland, for example. They don't have access to Malaysia, which is very odd because even Somalis have access to Malaysia. They don't have access to a number of the Muslim countries because perhaps of their relationship with Albania. And so the passport isn't quite as good as you'd expect. Now, I think that a country like Montenegro could easily market itself as being a beautiful country in Europe, and people want to be in Europe, and maybe they don't want to spend the 2 million euros that Cyprus requires for a similar program. And so they go to Montenegro, and then they just live there, and it's for someone who's from the Arab world, or Russia perhaps, or China. It's a great deal. Now they can be European. For a Westerner who's looking more for freedom of mobility, who's looking to get the most value, the Caribbean programs, which generally do come with visa-free access to the UK, in the case of Grenada, comes with visa-free access to China. In the case of, I believe, I think one of the countries did offer access to Canada. I think that's all gone now. But I mean, the point is the Caribbean programs offer more visa-free travel. And so if you don't need the name brand of being European, I think that for a lot less money and a lot less hassle, you can get into one of the Caribbean programs. Doesn't mean that Montenegro is not interesting. I like it because I think that again, the bigger countries are going to start to take a niche approach to economic citizenship. I'll talk about that in a separate video. I was talking to someone from one of the big newspapers in Belgium recently about that concept. So I think that Montenegro could shake up the game if they do move forward with this program. It's going to be very interesting to see what they do, because I think you're going to see more countries starting to dabble in this arena, and it's going to give you a lot more choice. Doesn't mean I think prices are going to go down. I don't think that at all, but it will be very interesting. If you want to find out more about my journey in economic citizenship, if you want to find out more about second passports in general and all of the internationalization stuff we talk about here, don't just subscribe on YouTube. That's step one. But also make sure you check out nomadcapitalist.com and figure out how you can do this for yourself.